Romancing the Stone is a 1984 romantic adventure film directed by Robert Zemeckis that became a huge hit of the mid-1980s. Kathleen Turner plays Joan Wilder, a successful romance novelist who lives alone in an apartment in New York City. Her friend and publisher, Gloria, played by Holland Taylor, tries to get her out as much as possible to meet somebody. Joan seems lonely and pines for a man who resembles the heroic male character that often shows up in her books.
No, he's just not.
Who? Jesse?
Maybe it's silly, but I know that there is somebody out there for me.
Oh yeah? Where?
Joan receives a letter sent by her recently murdered Colombian brother-in-law, Eduardo. Back in Colombia, her sister and Eduardo's widow, Elaine, played by Mary Ellen Trainor, is kidnapped by two antiquities smuggler cousins from Queens, New York. Ira, played by Zach Norman, and Ralph, played by Danny DeVito.
Come on, Ira, let's forget this one. I got a real bad feeling about it, real bad.
Will you stop worrying? Have I ever hurt you? I will never hurt you. I can't hurt you. We got the same blood. Look at those snappers, Ralph.
When she returns home, Joan finds her apartment ransacked. She receives a frantic phone call from her sister telling her that she has been kidnapped and that the letter she received contains a map. Joan needs to travel to Cartagena, Colombia, and bring the kidnappers the map, or else Elaine will be killed. Flying to Colombia, Joan is guided towards the wrong bus by Colonel Zolo, the deputy commander of the secret police and Eduardo's killer, played by Manuel Ojeda.
Hey, you're on the wrong bus! Hey, Miss Wilder! She got on the wrong bus. This is terrible.
When the wrong bus takes Joan deep into the jungles of Colombia and then crashes into another vehicle, Joan finds herself alone and menaced by Zolo.
La bolsa!
She is soon saved by an American bird hunter named Jack T. Colton, played by Michael Douglas.
Hi.
After promising to pay him $375 to get her to a town and a telephone, Jack and Joan begin their long trek through the Colombian jungle. After eluding Zolo and his military police, the two take refuge in an old down drug runner plane, and Jack learns the truth about why Joan is in Colombia.
You see here where it says this El Corazon is hidden in Cordoba province?
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting right in the middle of it.
All I care about is my sister, and that map is her life.
Like hell it is. Whatever's at the end of this map is your sister's life. Now we get our hands on this El Corazon. Then you got something to bargain with.
Eventually, the two begin to fall for each other, leading to a night of dancing and romance during a small-town festival. Ralph attempts to retrieve the map, to no avail.
I lost my Langostino.
Deciding to search for the treasure themselves, Jack and Joan follow the clues on the map and find the treasure, an enormous emerald stone called El Corazon, or the Heart. Jack and Joan plan on using the stone for leverage and hope to get Joan's sister back before it is too late. This film was written in 1978 by a woman named Diane Thomas. She was working as a waitress at Coral Beach Cantina on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California. She got an agent, and they sold the script within 1 week to Michael Douglas, who optioned it for $250,000. As a gift, Michael Douglas bought Diane Thomas a brand new Porsche. Sadly, on the night of October 21st, 1985, Thomas, her boyfriend, and a friend were driving on the Pacific Coast Highway. The boyfriend, who had had the least amount to drink, was driving, but the car spun out and crashed into a pole at 80 miles per hour. Diane Thomas and the friend in the car were both killed.
The last time that I saw Diane was she came over to show me the new car that I got her, and I think it was 3 weeks later she got killed in the Porsche. She had a boyfriend at the time. I think he was an ex-stunt man he was actually driving, but she always kind of liked those kind of Jack Colton characters in real life, and unfortunately had an accident down on Pacific Coast Highway, and we lost her much too young.
Having written Romancing the Stone, Diane Thomas is credited with having started a new genre of romantic adventure comedy films that would continue in the decades following the 1980s.
Oh, hi, Ma. It's me, Irving.
Ralph, you little twerp,
Oh,
where are you?
calm down, Ma.
The movie was originally going to be shot in Colombia, but there was such an increase in American kidnappings that the production was moved. The film was shot in Mexico in the summer of 1983. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis, and studio executives were so sure that this film was going to flop that Robert Zemeckis was preemptively fired from directing the 1985 movie Cocoon. It turned out that this movie was such a success that Robert Zemeckis was able to go forward on his own project, which was called Back to the Future. Had Romancing the Stone never existed, it's highly unlikely that Back to the Future would have ever been made. Several actors were offered the role of Jack Colton. Clint Eastwood, Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Christopher Reeve, and Sylvester Stallone all turned down the role. Stallone stated that he deeply regretted turning this movie down. Jessica Lange and Leslie Ann Warren both turned down the offer to play Joan Wilder. Michael Douglas offered the role to actress Deborah Winger, but according to a 2022 podcast interview with Rob Lowe, when the two met at a Mexican restaurant to discuss the movie, Deborah Winger fucking bit Michael Douglas on the arm.
She comes out for us to have a dinner one night, and we all have dinner together, and we're talking and knocking back some tequilas and this and that. And we walk out, and just as you would kind of go, oh, you, and give somebody a little punch in the arm, like joking around, she goes, oh, you, and she reaches over and she bites me on my arm. Bites me like, but he bites me. So I go, and she's like joking. I'm looking at her, I go, I don't know, man. I'm thinking this could be rough.
Despite every studio executive expecting this movie to be a massive box office bomb, upon its March 30th, 1984 release, Romancing the Stone grossed a worldwide total of $115.1 million. This not only made the movie a huge box office hit, but Romancing the Stone became one of the top 10 highest grossing films of 1984. This movie was a huge success. Critics loved it. President Ronald Reagan screened the movie at Camp David in May of 1984. This is one of those movies that was mega huge in its time, but it does seem to have cooled off a bit in the decades following the 1980s. It might be hard for some people to believe, but Romancing the Stone made more money at the box office than The Terminator, Red Dawn, and 16 Candles. I remember watching it with my father once, and I remember he told me that he had a memory of first seeing this movie in the mid-1980s on a Laserdisc. Like I said, it has cooled off over time, but it still holds up. I first saw this movie sometime around the late 1990s, Y2K, and I find myself enjoying it once every few years. It is an early 1980s classic that I think many people would enjoy. I recommend Romancing the Stone.